So if you could kindly take a seat, and then we can try to do a wrap-up. Thank you. Okay, so as you can see behind me, there's already a slide which we're getting ready to. Maybe I shall sit. Shall I sit? Okay, now I could say a lot of things, but I would rather have it interactive. Some of you have already come to me with questions. Maybe I should do a bit of a wrap-up formally. Yeah. Okay, let's see. One of the things I think it's important for us to consolidate in terms of consolidation is why did I choose these three particular themes? Namely learning by building, learning by being, and learning by collaborating. And what was the connection, how I perceived the connection between what you all saw or tried to see, regardless of the wireless, and possibly a more corporate environment for training. So let's start with learning by building. So my intention for the learning by building, what I was trying to, the link I was trying to make was, for those of you, I'm not sure how many of you, just hypothetically, if a company or if an SME is into design and fabrication. So for example, if you're in the business of making furniture or making water bottles, so of course there are many technological platforms out there for you to. I'm just introducing. So my contention for learning by building is that you could consider this as an example for rapid prototyping, especially in distributed teams. So if your team is not necessarily co-located all in Singapore, if you're a regional presence and you're still into, and this ties in actually with learning by collaborating, because one thing that features very strongly here is that the teams need to, if your teams are non-contiguous or non-spatially located, they can still work quite meaningfully on prototyping fabricated objects. I'm not sure whether you had the opportunity to see, but it's fairly easy to produce a chair in Second Life in the environment you saw. Whereas obviously, if we were to do this in real life, I would need to learn how to sew. That was a joke. Okay, never mind. It's late in the day. Now, as for learning by being, it's a slightly more nuanced argument. The learning by being argument is that that for those of us whose business is training of say service, if we are in the service industry, if we are in the tertiary industry, say F&B or hospitality, and we need our frontline staff to be sufficiently, I'm going to use the word enculturated again because I like that word, sufficiently enculturated into your corporate philosophy. It's good. The provocation I'd like to, I was hoping you would take away, is that if the training or the learning environment is sympathetic to, is aligned with the role that they are playing. This is quite a, okay, I'll say this properly, because I'm using quite high level language because I actually talked to 1/3 of you, but 2/3 of you I haven't. Okay, sometimes role play is done quite poorly. Poor role play is done when you have people coming up, people being arrowed to come to the front of the class in front of their peers, and then thrust a script in their hand and say, okay, read this. Okay, you are now playing the role of a village headman. You are playing the role of a doctor who is trying to diagnose the sicknesses in the village, and so on and so forth. So obviously these terrified adolescents and these young recruits to your company haven't the faintest idea what they are doing, nor are they reading anything meaningfully, so they will be mumbling to themselves to the floor, and then everybody else behind is unable to hear anything. That's because the task is inauthentic, it's not meaningful. Why? One of my contentions is that it's not meaningful because they are very much aware that they are not in fact village headmen, nor are they doctors, but they are in fact being in undergoing a training course. Why? Because when they look around them, they are very conscious of the fact that they are being stared at by like 80 pairs of eyes, like I am right now, and they are in fact not in a forest glade, but they are in a training room. So the argument for learning by being is nuanced in the sense that by looking after the details, by making sure that, and this aligns very well again with what the Disney talks and with Greg Markey said this earlier today. If you pay attention to the design of the learning environment, to the extent that you pay attention to the context setting and that the environment is congruent and aligned and sympathetic to the role, then the learner's cognitive dissonance is very much reduced. The learner more or less slips into the role without even realizing he's in the role. Do you understand? That was a very powerful statement. The learner slips into the role without even realizing he's into the role, and therefore the learning becomes more meaningful because he does honestly believe he is the whatever role he's supposed to play. Because the messages that are coming in from the eyes and the ears are supporting the role. So that's the argument behind learning by being. So I've been trying to help you translate these very specific case examples. I know many of you said that this is for geography, but what's the relevance for my particular area? I'm trying to help you understand that, for example, for the service industry, for those of you with distributed teams, for rapid prototyping, as well as for those of you so that would be my preliminary attempt at a wrap up. I'm sure that there would be questions, so please feel free to do so. And I'll continue the questions until I get stopped by Spring.
How about the classroom of the future?
Yes?
They give a simulation, the immersive simulation. So like why is like how you're inside the second life. So what is the pro and con of having that?
Okay, first I need to understand what you mean by class of the future.
They have an immersive room.
So you're speaking of a hypothetical.
I think that's
because some universities actually, for example mine, they actually have something called a classroom of the future.
Yes.
So, so I just want to understand. I just want to make sure that what we so that I don't talk past you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like immersive environment where you're in the environment.
Oh, I see. Like what I think Temasek Poly is, and maybe MINDEF also, right? For those of you, MINDEF, actually my boss David, whom interrupted your lunch today. It's a good thing he interrupted your lunch, not me. So David and I have actually consulted with MINDEF before, and they've in terms of because one of the problems for the officer cadets and what they used to call Safinkos, I'm not sure what they call it now. But again, there's this problem about the most efficacious use of limited resources and how to leverage technology. So that in terms of, but generally speaking, the reason I'm hesitating a bit, those of you who are sharp, you probably realize I'm hesitating. I try my best to steer clear away from the overuse of the word immersive, because I feel that sometimes immersive is overplayed. I was speaking to one of you earlier, and I was basically the argument which some of my trusted friends and colleagues have helped me to understand, because I'm not inherently a gamer, but those who have done a lot of reading and first-hand embodied experience in such environments. Actually, a 2.5D environment can be just as effective in terms of learning takeaway as a fully blown 3D immersive environment. So what I'm trying to say is two things. I think I'll say the more important thing first, because in case I forget it. If you as a company leader or a team leader are thinking of investing in a similar thing, don't be careful not to get led by the nose by a technology vendor who says, "Oh, I'll give you, my degree of realism will blow you away." because two unintended consequences might happen from that. Firstly, in order for the degree of realism to blow you away, you need very high hardware requirements. So one thing I do like about Second Life, although it's not the, I mean it is basically it's the oldest virtual software platform out there, so it's quite mature. But it also means it's scalable down to fairly basic, I'll use my own Mac. Fairly basic hardware requirements, meaning that you don't actually have to spend a lot of money running it. The other thing that might happen is that, more importantly though, is that it's not actually the degree of realism or immersion. So in other words, for those people who invest a lot of money in huge plasma screens and all that, that's fun and really nice. But if you have ever looked at a child playing with a handphone game, the learning from, say, cut the rope or whatever else they play, you guys know better than me, is just as authentic if the game is well designed. And many of these games are not fully blown 3D games. They're obviously not immersive. They're 2D games or 2.5D games. So I just would like to sound a word of caution with regards buying into the hype of immersion. That's all.
Agree with you.
Yeah.
Costing, yeah.
One last question.
Sure. Yeah. Costing? Or no? Costing is quite a complicated question. I can try and answer it very simply. But if there are other pressing questions, I can. So costing, there are three. I've spoken to a couple of you just now, so thank you for coming up with your words of encouragement. If you have the metaphor in your head of a web browser like Safari or Firefox or Internet Explorer, the web browser gives you a window to the world. It gives you a window to the web. So so likewise for here, the software that you were interacting with or attempted to interact with when the wireless was up was actually just a window to the actual world. The world itself is not resident on any of these computers. The world is, like so many other things nowadays, is a cloud-based world. So it's somewhere on a series of server farms in the US. And therefore that's why so in other words, it's not like those of you who are gamers, it's not as if you are buying a DVD and running the game from your hard disk. You are actually, so in that sense, the startup cost is actually quite low. In fact, can potentially be free, because the software download, you're just downloading a web browser basically. You're downloading a free web browser. And then the avatars that you see the students having, they are also free. But of course, where does the company get its revenue stream model from? So just as Google gets its revenue stream from ads, Linden Lab, which is the company behind this, it gets its revenue stream from the sale of land. And I think you've had enough of an idea of this here to understand the importance of land if you want to do anything meaningful. But again, don't be misled by sometimes you hear people saying, oh, I have a private island in Second Life. Yes, private islands in Second Life are good. And in fact, one of the islands that you saw here was indeed a private island, but they are very expensive. If you are still thinking of, shouldn't I, maybe I should just try it out and see. You don't have to spend $1,000 on startup costs buying a piece of land from the internet. You can buy a much smaller plot of land for maybe as little as maybe $20 a month, and then you can try out your learning environment. You can try your model, your revenue stream, and if you think it works for you, then by all means slowly start growing into your own private island. But you don't necessarily have to have a high startup cost. Okay, so I'll be happy to take questions beyond this. Thank you again for your kind, and I'd like to, I think we should thank Ang Mo Kio Secondary and the students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. I think it was a very interesting session to bring down the students as well to be able to use the laptops. And it was a very unique and brave attempt to be able to let our participants to each interact with the laptops. And I apologize for the technical difficulties that we faced.